whether it's a new recipe or, if you're struggling that much to get something across the finish line, it's probably a sign that you're maybe working too hard, that it's not meant to be. And when it just flows and it just comes out of you and it comes from that inspired place, it tends to not only speak to you, but also speak to the people that you're trying to present it to.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thanks for listening. I am super inspired and love talking to really dynamic operators who do really amazing, extraordinary things. So imagine a former fry cook turned corporate head chef for MTV. That's right, MTV, who later goes on to found a fast-growing taco concept. And not only that, the taco concept started in a trailer in arguably one of the most competitive restaurant cities on the planet, a real foodie city. That would be Austin, Texas. And then going on to have 95 locations in 11 different states, right? That's incredible. So I could only be talking to Mr. Mike Rypka, who is the founder of Torchy's Tacos. Their tagline, damn good tacos. Anyway, we're going to talk all about irreverent and extraordinary marketing that really builds a very unique brand. We're going to talk about growth, how you go from 1 location to 10 locations to 95. We'll talk about staffing. We'll talk about the magic dust of restaurants. This episode really has it all, so stay tuned.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rocktars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Rockstars, let me tell you about 7 Shifts. 7 Shifts is a modern labor management platform designed for restaurateurs by restaurateurs. Effective labor management is more important than ever to maximize profit and success, especially now as restaurants begin to reopen and expand their teams. Trusted by over 500,000 restaurant professionals, 7 Shifts gives you the tools you need to simplify scheduling, easily manage time and attendance, communicate with your team, and retain your talent. Best of all, 7 Shifts integrates with the POS and payroll systems you already use and trust, turning your team into a competitive advantage to your business. Right now, Restaurant Rockstars listeners can get 3 months absolutely free. Get started now at 7shifts.com/restaurant rockstars. That's the number 7, SHIFTS.com/restaurant rockstars to get 3 months of industry-leading labor management for free. Now, on with the episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast, and our mission is to help you rediscover the passion of how and why you got into this business in the first place. And now that you're making it through this pandemic, it's all about inspiring you to keep on going. With me today is the founder of a really exciting brand called Torchy's Tacos. His name, Mr. Mike Rypka. Welcome to the show, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Roger. Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on.
I am really excited to talk to you today. You're a very innovative marketer, and we're going to talk all about the power of the Torchy's brand. You've done some pretty exciting things. But before we get into that, let's talk about other passions besides running a fast-growing company. What do you do when or if you have any spare time that you really enjoy?
Got a 10-year-old son. Obviously, I love spending time with him. We like to go out on the boat and do some wake surfing. That's fun. Definitely get out on the bike, cruise around town, like to hike. A lot of outdoor type stuff is mostly what I'm into. Check out new restaurants, travel, get out to new cities, go to different countries when I can. Obviously, that's been a little hindered this last few years, but still like to get out and do things and, hang out with my buddies and stuff.
Great. Well, I know how exciting it is to have a 10-year-old. I miss when my kids were young. They're both teenagers now. I got a, soon to be a senior in high school. I got a freshman in high school, all that kind of stuff. So it's always great to spend that family time. Let's talk about your interesting background in hospitality. You started out as a fry cook. Let's go there and move forward. Corporate head chef of MTV. I mean, these are exciting opportunities. How did all that happen?
So I come from a divorced family, started working really early on. We didn't have I wouldn't say we were poor, but we definitely weren't, living up on top of the hill either. If I wanted money to go do things, I had to go get a job. So I got a job at Popeyes as a fry cook in Springfield, Virginia. And I went from there, worked there for about a year, 2 years, and then got a job with a company called La Peep. I started as a busser and then a dishwasher, and then one lovely Sunday morning brunch, about 5 cooks decided not to come to work that day. I think they had a little too much to drink the night before. And they threw me on the line and, started cooking. And they handed me a spatula and a pair of tongs. And I was in charge of making breakfast potatoes and bacon that morning. And from there, I went on and worked at a country club. And that's where I really kind of fell in love with sort of the passion of food and kind of how creative it can be. And the executive chef there, his name was Brian. He really kind of took me under his wing and, helped develop me and coach me on like what it is to be a chef, what it is to have a career in culinary. And I worked there for another couple of years and then went off to college, went to Johnson & Wales University at the North Miami campus. And then I got a hospitality degree from Florida International University down the street. And I got my bachelor's there. While I was in college, I worked kind of all over the place down in Miami, worked at Fisher Island, got to cook for President Clinton and all the Latin American presidents, worked with the White House chefs while I was there. Did a lot of, great fundraiser events. Feast on South Beach, Tasted the Nation of events, did kosher catering. Worked at a bunch of fine dining restaurants as well, and really just honed in on my craft and worked as many places as I could just to kind of get my chops. Graduated, decided to go back to DC, which is where I'm from, and got my first job. I actually got hired as an assistant manager for the World Bank in DC, and about 2 months after I was employed there, the executive chef left to take another position. And I went, they asked me if I wanted to be the executive chef. And nervously, I said, sure. And I had a staff of about 75 people just in the kitchen alone. We fed 3,000 to 4,000 people a day. We had an international menu from around the world. There was probably 14 different sort of stations from different areas of the world. And we had about 52 different entrees a day that rotated every day for 6 weeks. So it was a little bit of a daunting task. And I took it on and rose to the challenge and learned a lot. I kind of call that my PhD program, that job. Learned a lot about just all kinds of cuisines and spices and foods and, got into learning how to manage people, develop people, and kind of hone my craft as becoming a chef and a leader in terms of being able to, lead a staff and get them to do the things you believe in and work with them. And then went out to LA and was the executive chef for MTV and Disney Animation. And I got to do a bunch of fun stuff there. Was also a regional training chef out there and worked and did a lot of classes on different ethnic cuisines and, so taught other chefs kind of, the backgrounds of Asian flavors and Indian flavors and things like that. And then I got a call from some folks at the World Bank and ended up being the chef at Enron in Houston. We kind of all know how that happened.
No kidding. Yeah.
I served the Last Supper there and was there for that whole thing that crashed.
Yep.
Definitely interesting experience. For whatever reason, since I was the new guy, I had to lay off a lot of the people. So I had to have those conversations, huge lesson in just terms of, how to do that and how to do it right and do it with respect. Those are hard conversations when you got to go always to a big staff and tell them, hey, I don't have a job for you, tomorrow. And so then I ended up in Austin, which is where I live today. and I was the executive chef for Dell Computers, ran all the food service there, and also a regional chef as well for Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. And I did a lot of training and procurement stuff for the company, for other outlets and stuff within Sodexo. And then got a call from a friend of mine who was looking for a chef to kind of help develop a menu. And that was with the Chewy's group. And it was a different concept they were opening called Lucy's Boatyard. And so I left and went to go do that. And, got to be real creative. And it was a very hard restaurant. It was about a 500-seat restaurant. And, I think the owners were sort of towards the end of their days and didn't quite have the tenacity that they had, when they were younger. But the restaurant kind of ended up folding. I sort of saw the writing on the wall, and I kind of looked at myself and I said, look, if I'm going to do my own thing, now's the time to do it. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I know if I do my own thing, I'm going to be working my butt off. And I had a friend who had who was my original partner. He had an old barbecue trailer, and he said, hey, what do you think about opening a taco truck? And I kind of thought he was nuts at first, especially being in Austin, Texas, where tacos are king. And we started talking about it and started really getting inspired about it. And August 1st, 2006, we opened the doors to our first trailer, which is Torchy's Tacos.
Wow. So there's the vision, the brainchild. First of all, what a resume. That sounds like 2 lifetimes of gigs for you. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, there was a lot happening for sure.
Right? And learning at each one and growing at each one. And then all of that leads you to this idea of starting a taco trailer. So Austin, hugely competitive restaurant town, Tex-Mex, all that sort of thing, tacos. So who's your competition, and does competition bring more business? I mean, what's your thought on that?
I'd say, so we've kind of branded ourselves as craft casual, which is, we've got full service bars in our restaurants. And, we get compared to Chipotle and other places like that. But I'd say locally here in Austin, probably Taco Deli is our biggest competitor. And we're similar on some fronts and not so similar on other fronts. They're more of a breakfast lunch taco concept. And, we serve obviously all 3 meals. We're open later. And I think just, they're a little more geared towards kind of authentic Mexican tacos, whereas we don't really have any bounds to what we do. We kind of start with some of those authentic flavors, but we definitely branch out and, we'll do, Jamaican flavored tacos. We've got one called the brush fire that's got, a Jamaican jerk marinade on the chicken. And, we'll do stuff more Pacific Rim and kind of anything that we get creative about, we'll put it in a tortilla and serve it.
Well, it seems to me that, well, again, it's like you have very, very strong branding, and you've got a very distinct image that catches the attention of the dining public. So is that your brainchild as well? Did you come up with that? Or you worked with an agency that just came up with that idea? I mean, it has something to do with a red Vespa and a truck and passing out free tacos. Like all this is consistency that just built and built and built upon that image. Take us through that whole thing.
Yeah, so me and my original partner, his name was Bill Roberts. He was a very creative landscape architect, and we both really worked, one-on-one together in terms of coming up with the branding. Now, did we know, today there'd be 95 restaurants across all these states? No, we didn't know that, but we knew that, hey, if you're going to start a business and you want to be successful, you want to have a brand that sort of speaks to people. And he actually had the name Torchy's. And he came to me one day super excited, and he's like, I got the name. And I said, well, what is it? And he went on to tell me this story about back in the 90s, he'd had a little too much to drink and went to one of the late night taco spots here in Austin. And this sort of image and name popped in his head of this silver Airstream trailer with Torchy's above it, neon with flames coming out of the Y. And he just sort of stuck that thought and stuck that name in the back of his head. And here we were trying to come up with a name, and that thought came back to him, and we loved it when he said it.
Totally.
And the other thing was, so we're Torchy's Damn Good Tacos. The damn good really came from our customers.
Oh, really? Yeah. Awesome.
And
yeah,
when you think about great brands out there, you think about Nike, you think about Apple, you think about Starbucks, you name it. There's tons of them out there. A lot of them have a symbol, an emblem, a character, the golden arches at McDonald's. If you take that name away, you can see that symbol or icon or whatever it is.
Yeah, it speaks for itself.
And you'll know
the name. Yep.
It speaks for itself. And so we knew we needed something like that. And we talked about torches. We talked about pitchforks.
Yeah.
And I, in the middle of talking about all that, said, what about a baby devil? And we started talking about sort of this dichotomy of kind of damn versus good. And you've got the angel on one shoulder that's telling you eat the kale salad, and the little devil on the other guys says, screw it, man, go eat the queso,
Yeah, I love it.
And we really wanted to be a place that you could come in, you could let your hair down, you could be who you are, exactly where you are in life, and just not have to put on any pretentiousness or anything else or pretend to be anything else, and just come in and enjoy a great meal that tastes awesome, and and have a good time and go about your day. And so that really spoke to us. And so we had a local artist here in Austin who kind of helped us draw up the logo. We gave him sort of the ideas and kind of said, hey, you're the artist, have at it. And, he pretty much nailed the logo in the first try. So
you're like, that's it. I know.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Yeah. It all came together. That's cool. So 95 restaurants. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, I was going to say, I think that, when you do things from an inspired place, which I feel Torchy's was really born out of an inspired place, you'll know the right decisions because they almost come easy. And not that you don't struggle to maybe get to that decision, but by the time it's time to make the decision, it's an easy yes or no. And I think that, over the history of our company, that's been sort of true. And we sort of use that as a guiding light when we're, talking about branding and talking about, whether it's a new recipe or, if you're struggling that much to get something across the finish line, it's probably a sign that you're maybe working too hard, that it's not meant to be. And when it just flows and it just comes out of you and it comes from that inspired place, it tends to not only speak to you, but also speak to the people that you're trying to present it to. So
beautiful. That's beautiful. I want the audience to specifically focus on that. That is so inspiring what you just said. And that is the passion that this business is founded on. So thanks for sharing. So let's start with the trailer. And then now 95 restaurants, 11 different states. How do you go from 1 to 2 to 10 to 50? Take us through your growth trajectory, how long that took before you opened a bricks and mortar location. And now you're in sports stadiums, you're all over the place, but you still got a trailer that you take on the road because it's, it goes back to the original inspiration. But let's talk about your growth, how long that took to achieve and what some of the hurdles and obstacles and challenges were before it really started to take off.
Well, when you go, so we opened our doors August 1st, 2006. Trailers at that point, food trucks were not really the cool thing yet. I feel like we were kind of on the front edge of that, especially here in Austin and in Texas as well. So it wasn't the easiest thing to get someone to come try a taco out of a food truck or a trailer, sort of kind of the thought was like, oh, that's maybe a roach coach. It's not clean. It's not, whatever. So it took some convincing to get people to come. And, luckily with my background and everything, like, I knew how to keep a really clean area and serve great, safe food to people. And so, that wasn't an issue. But nevertheless, like, people didn't know who we are. They didn't know who Torchy's was. And, that was the whole Vespa thing, right? So I had to go out and get business. And, I didn't have this huge startup SBA loan or, family that was throwing me, hundreds of thousands of dollars to open a restaurant. I did it all off credit cards and a loan on my house. And, so every dollar counted. And, I couldn't sit there and just wait and hope that people would come walk in the doors and try my food. So, one thing I learned real quick is, sometimes you got to ask people for their business. And, so I did that. I'd make up big, huge batches of chips and salsa and take them out and take them around town. And I'd have a menu attached to the bag and talk with the shop owners or the people in the offices or wherever I was going and let them know. And, the orders slowly but surely started coming in. And, those first days were amazingly hard, a lot of hard work. I mean, I probably worked 100 hours a week, probably the first 2 years in business with literally no paycheck. And I was getting foreclosure notices on my house. I had creditors calling me left and right. But there was always something that would happen that would give us just enough to make that next payroll or to pay that next produce bill or to pay, our food vendors or keep the lights on. It'd be a catering that would come through. It would be just an out of the ordinary busier Saturday than we had the week before. And, those were the things that kind of kept us going. And we opened our second trailer about a year after the first. And we brought on some new partners. A couple, Farrell and Rebecca, joined the team. And then, through them, we were able to find some other investors who helped us open our first brick and mortar in 2008. And, some of it was a little bit by accident, to be honest with you, in the beginning. We knew that it was kind of hard to make one trailer make enough money. So we thought, well, if we invested and got a second trailer and put it in another location, it would help offset our costs for our commissary kitchen, because commissary kitchens aren't the cheapest thing in the world. Right. So, and then we were having issues with our lease. And so we're like, man, we've got to be able to stay in the same area. And that's really kind of how we landed on our first brick and mortar. And it totally was by chance. Farrell, my other business partner, he was literally driving down the road and watched the landlord put the for lease sign up in the window as he was driving by, and stomped on the brakes, turned his car, and he saw her talking to someone else and waited about 20 minutes and then went up and talked to her. And within, I think, 2 days, we had a lease on a brand new brick and mortar. So it in the beginning, it was sort of hodgepodge. And then it came a lot from our customers in terms of, hey, we wish you would open here. We love you guys. We'd love to have one in North Austin or this area, Austin, or up by the campus. And, so, when we could and when we could afford it, we'd started opening more stores. But, and the thing was we had this great sort of, unlikely kind of renegades that all worked for us. We were all kind of renegades to some degree in terms of, a lot of folks with tattoos and, sort of not your average, straight cut looking folks, but we all had passion for food. We all had passion for tacos. And we had passion for, giving guests a damn good experience, and got to provide a lot of opportunities for those people. And it's been quite the ride.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of edginess, a little bit of irreverence there. I mean, you've got branding and retail merchandise. Show us your tacos. It's like all this stuff just catches your attention, your imagination, and it's all part of the branding we were talking about. So you guys are particularly strong, at the marketing piece, which is awesome. But, marketing is worthless if you don't have the product to back it up, and the public loves your food, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, I think, when it comes from, like I said, an inspired place, I mentioned my tenure at the World Bank. I got a huge culinary lesson there and I was cooking African food, Indian food, Thai food, Korean food, Mediterranean, Spanish food, Moroccan food. So I got all this exposure to, so many different types of spices and ingredients and everything else. And I really drew on a lot of that in terms of creating our menu items and kind of, luckily knowing like, hey, this culture uses habaneros in this way, and this other culture might use them in this way. And so that really helped me, I think, be able to take and combine flavors and really do something new and different with them that, people maybe weren't expecting, but they were still familiar, but maybe the way we used them were a little bit different.
Is there any flexibility with the menu in all these locations, or you're rock solid consistent? The menu is the menu so that you get a consistent experience no matter which Torchy's you dine at?
I'd say our core menu is definitely consistent across all our stores. We do have, we're always testing new things. So there might be an area where we might test a new taco. Like we're testing a beef mofo. And that one is, been in test for a while. We're testing some churros in another market as a new dessert item. So we'll have things like that going on in different, sort of areas of our company. There's a couple taco items that, certain folks think, hey, we really think this taco would sell great up in Colorado. So we'll let them run that on their menu as well. So there's a little bit of variability there, but our core menu and everything else is pretty much the same.
So you're selling a lot of tacos, but it's great that you also have a liquor license and you're selling a lot of margaritas that go with the tacos. So that's a competitive advantage. Not everyone can boast as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't remember exactly which store it was. I know that it was SMU where we put our first bar in. We tested that out. I don't remember which number store it was though, but that's proven to be a huge success for us. And it also really kind of adds to the service model, right? Like, cause you can come up to the bar and get full service. So,
yeah, right.
Bartender will talk with you, sit there and watch the game, have a couple drinks, have some tacos, have some queso. And, it's definitely proven to be a good thing for us.
And your popularity has then led to catering because obviously people love the food. So big events and that sort of thing, you guys cater as well.
Yeah, we do all kinds of events. We've got ACL coming back to Austin here in a couple of weeks. We're going to be out there doing that. We've done everything from, we've been in the Astros Stadium. We've done golf tournaments. We've done tons of fundraisers. We've done private corporate events, private events. We've done weddings. You name it, we kind of go do it. And then we've also got a real good, robust to-go catering where you can come to the store and pick it up. During COVID, we kind of came up with these family packs that were meant for, 4 people about. And, that really helped us kind of get through the pandemic and being able to kind of bring the food to the guests, when they weren't coming inside the 4 walls. So we've always had a history of really getting out there and doing things outside the 4 walls.
So I noticed, all the stores seem just slightly different in terms of their vibe, even though your branding is consistent. How would you describe the vibe of a Torchy's? Like what first comes to mind? Like I want the audience to visualize it without actually going to the website where I got a lot of information from.
Yeah, I'd say fun, upbeat would be the first 2 words that come to mind. If you start in a trailer, that's kind of its own thing. And then to like open a brick and mortar and say, well, what does that brand even look like inside an actual building? So we kind of thought we wanted to have sort of essence of kind of that street food culture in each of the restaurants. And we never wanted to be cookie cutter, mainly just because we kind of think it's boring, to be
Yeah, of course.
honest with
Yeah.
you.
You're anything but boring.
Yeah. And, we want our restaurants to be fun. We want them to speak to the neighborhood in which they're in. So we use a lot of, we've used reclaimed wood. We use these really cool, what are they called? These like reflectors, like the street reflectors. We'll do walls out of those. We use all kinds of different tiles and different types of material. We've got graffiti in some of our restaurants from local graffiti artists that are in the neighborhood that our stores are in. We'll feature local artists sometimes. And so we kind of try to, not only sort of cater to that neighborhood that we're opening the store in, but also stay true to those, street-born roots of being in a taco trailer and where we came from.
Let's go back to the staff and the team. You mentioned earlier about encouraging people who they are, their individual personalities, all that kind of stuff. So you obviously have sort of service and training philosophies that lead to the guest experience. Let's talk about that. What do you look for in the people you hire, and how do you onboard them?
So, we used to kind of have a funny saying, in the early days, especially, and it's probably defined a little better than this, but, as the founder, I can kind of get away with saying it, I guess. We used to like to think that we hire for attitude, and really,
yes,
it's about, we would say things like, hey, is this someone you could drive to El Paso and back with and not want to throw them out of the car or kill them by the end of the trip?
Yeah, that's good.
And, because I think, if you have good training and, tacos are not rocket science. They're just tacos. There's definitely an art to it, and it's not an easy business by any stretch, but we're not teaching people chemistry and stuff here. We're teaching them how to make tacos, serve alcohol, and give a great customer experience. So to us, it's really about, do they bring the right kind of energy and the right kind of attitude to the job? And we really look for that. And we look for, people that share those same kind of values, and, they care about customer service. They care about, wanting to do a good job and serve a great product. And so those are the things we really look for when we're hiring folks.
You obviously travel around the chain and visiting the different locations. I think we're all familiar with that show, Undercover Boss, where the CEO kind of goes undercover and, disguises himself and goes in there and like works the line or the dish pit or whatever. And no one has any idea that he's the CEO. Do you ever do anything like that? Or are your visits always announced in advance?
I like to, I wouldn't say I put on a mustache and a pair of glasses before I walk into stores, but I prefer to go unannounced. And, most people in the company know who I am. There's obviously newer folks who haven't met me yet or whatever, may not know who I am, but I like to go in and really see, what it looks like on a Sunday night. Hey, are we doing a damn good job Sunday night at 8:30, 30 minutes before we're closing versus, a Saturday lunch when everything's rocking and rolling, and get different times of the day to really see, how we're really doing. And I think that's important. And I also think it's important that, you get the chance to, you're not just talking to the MP at that restaurant. You're talking to the assistant managers. You're talking to that, part-time cashier or that part-time bartender or, maybe those part-time cooks. And those are the folks that, if you really can energize them and pump them up, they're the ones that really make the difference on those sort of what we call outer shifts, right? They're like, they're not your kind of core business hours, but, when if you fail at those shifts and those hours, it just dwindles your sales overall. So it's really important to always remember you're only as good as the last taco you served.
Yeah. And as owners and operators, we have a very critical eye when we go into our own establishment if we're not there all the time. Sometimes we get a little too close to it. If, like you said, you were working those 100-hour weeks and your head's in the trenches. But now it's like when you got the 30,000-foot altitude view and you walk into a store and you see things, you want your staff to notice things and fix things before the guest sees those things. I'm sure that's part of your operating, philosophy as well, right? Empowered people give better dining experiences. And, you want to walk in and not see anything that you wouldn't want the guest or the customer to see.
Yeah. And, it's, humans naturally are imperfect.
Sure.
We all make mistakes. We all have bad shifts. We all have, whatever. So what I like to do is I really like to catch people doing things right and really celebrate that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll go in the kitchen and pretty much every restaurant I go into, I always taste the food. And I'll do a line check. And I like to make it a big deal when, someone's made the perfect Diablo sauce or the perfect, green sauce, or the fajitas are perfect that day or whatever it is. And really celebrate it, And then I also use, let's say they didn't do a great job on one of those sauces that day. Then I might go in the back and say, hey, do we have a different batch? Or let's make a new one and let's try them side by side. And then let the team members try it and say, hey, what tastes damn good to you, and it's a good learning opportunity for the folks in the store. And, when you're in the trenches and you're doing it every day, it a lot of times helps to have that outside view come in and sort of turn on the lights in the whole place versus kind of your narrow focus of your job every day.
So this labor crisis is probably the worst challenge next to the pandemic this industry's ever faced. And it seems like every industry, but restaurants are particularly hard hit. Are you guys struggling with that? Are you having trouble staffing the locations, that sort of thing?
I don't think we're as bad as some and maybe not as great as others. I'd say we're kind of upper middle of the pack in terms of getting fully restaffed. Definitely some challenges there. Restaurants are definitely an influx, outflux kind of business. I think there's a lot of people that, spend sort of their college years working in restaurants and then they get their degree and they go on and do something else. So I think a lot of what's happened is, we've got, there's probably a good amount of folks that took the pandemic and said, hey, I'm going to go back to college and learn something different and try something new. So we're fighting against that. And but we've done a pretty good job for the most part in terms of staffing all our stores. We could always use a little more. I think we've definitely got some overtime that people are working and just trying to keep the wheels on the bus, if you will. But
yeah.
It's definitely been more of a challenge than I've seen it in the past, for sure. And the thing that's hard, right? It's like, staying true to that, hiring for attitude, right? Like not just taking anybody off the street.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And, bringing them in just because they're a warm body and you can throw them in a position, meanwhile, they might totally not be the right fit for that, So we've done a lot on the corporate side as far as providing tools and helping wherever we need to for recruiting and, just helping folks get whatever resources they need to, get people in the doors and, hopefully find some great folks.
Did the pandemic negatively affect your business, or your concept was pretty well aligned with the pivots that most restaurants had to make? What happened to you?
Well, I think everybody, got hit those first couple months for sure during the real major lockdown. One thing that really helped us was so we have what we call a managing partner program in our company, and so our what would be called a general manager somewhere else, we call them MPs.
I like that.
And they actually they write a check to come work for us, and in return for that, they sign up for a 3-year contract. and they get to profit share in the profits of the business. We're not talking bonuses. We're talking profit share. And so, that directly affects their paycheck. If, the restaurant doesn't perform well. So if the restaurant performs well, they do really well. If it doesn't perform that well, it hurts their pay. And so our MPs really took the bull by the horns and got super creative. I mean, we had drive-throughs where we didn't have drive-throughs, set up with tents and iPads out in the parking lots. We, pivoted to curbside super quick and got that up and running. I mentioned to you earlier about the family packs. We got those rolled out as quick as we could. We've upgraded a lot of our IT stuff when it comes to online ordering and things like that to make it easier to get to the guests outside the four walls. So we were fairly quick and nimble in terms of being able to pivot and do things different.
There's a lot of operators out there that think they're running restaurants, and you're obviously building a brand. We talked a lot about that. And one of the things that's an advantage of building a brand is brand extensions and catering and merchandise sales and all those things where people are literally paying you to advertise their business. It seems like you got quite a bit of a merchandising program going on too.
Yeah, that's always been sort of a thing that's been part of the company. Because we have such a fun brand, it's hard not to do cool shirts and cool hats and, things like that. And they've done well. And I think that, like you said, building that brand, a lot of it has to do with culture, not only with your team members, but also with the communities in which you're in. We're very involved in our local communities with, different organizations and stuff. We have 3 major organizations that we work with. We do a lot with cancer research in MD Anderson. We work with Make-A-Wish and grant wishes for kids around the country.
That's beautiful.
And then we also support the Phoenix House and recovery and addiction and getting people help with addiction and alcohol abuse. And all those are also brand extensions, right? They're things we're passionate about as a company, and they're things that people in the company can get behind. And, when you do all those things, I think it really helps in terms of, building a brand, being part of the community, giving back, and doing the right thing for the folks you serve.
That's absolutely true. Social responsibility is incredibly important, especially if it's authentic and genuine, which clearly it is in your case. It's not just about driving business. That's just a result of doing good, where your business and your awareness goes up, but you're doing it for all the right reasons. And I think that's great.
Yeah. We it's funny. We first maybe 4 or 5 years, we sat down one day at the end of the year and we're looking through the whole year-end financials, and we're like, man, we gave all this money away, but I don't know if it really made a difference, And so one thing we had to do was we really kind of got together as an organization. Well, why would we? That's kind of where we came up with those 3 main charities with Make-A-Wish and Phoenix House and the cancer research. And then each of our stores has their own budget within their store that they're allowed to, give money away and do things they're passionate about in their community, to help support the folks that, live and work in their communities where they're at.
Excellent. So we've talked a little bit about the pandemic, and it's literally devastated this industry. There's 100,000 plus restaurants that have closed, never to reopen again. That's created new opportunity for others. But, what's your best advice for those operators that have made it through the worst? They're still struggling with the labor challenges, with supply chain shortages, late deliveries, all this kind of stuff. We've been beaten up as an industry pretty badly. But if we're still standing, what's your outlook for the future? And what would you say to operators, whether they run an independent location, single location, or multi-unit?
Yeah, I think what it's forced a lot of us to do is really get down to, core menus. We had to shrink our menu down a little bit and focus in on, what we really do and do best. That's been important, and that's helped us sort of streamline not only our operations, but our labor, to be able to, do that and do that well. I think that's going to be real important, coming out of this pandemic is figuring out and doing the things that you're really good at. You can't please everybody. You just can't. And I think the general public has been open to that and willing to, help and see restaurants do that as well. And I think you got to open yourself up to, different ideas. You can't have a closed mind, especially in these days that we're living in. And look at the people that are in your community. Look at the people that are, frying chicken or bussing tables or washing dishes or, serving the guests, and talk to them and get their ideas and really involve them in that decision making. And you'll not only get more buy-in from them, but you also get some ideas that you maybe never even thought of that will really help, keep your business moving in the right direction.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Mike. Hey, I'm looking at some gold records on the wall behind you. Want to tell us about that?
Oh, that's a sign.
Led Zeppelin, it looks like. Isn't it physical graffiti?
Yes, it is. It's signed by all the original band members too. So
that's a piece of memorabilia.
I found that in Arizona from a guy who does collectible stuff. So it was pretty cool to find that.
So I guess you're a Led Zepp fan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm a man of many genres of music. I love all kinds of music.
That's awesome. Did you get a chance to see the Hart sisters, the Wilson sisters from Hart, doing the tribute to Led Zeppelin at the Kennedy Center, playing Stairway to Heaven? That was so inspiring. It's on YouTube.
That was quite the performance for sure.
I think Jimmy Page was in tears.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, it's been my pleasure having you on the Restaurant Rockstars podcast, and we thank our audience for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time. That was awesome, Mike. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, and your journey with us. In order to achieve this kind of success, you really have to have what I call 3 fundamentals really nailed. The staff training piece, where you got a dream team staff that really just have your back in your business and really just make friends with your customers every single day. And not only that, they know how to serve and sell, not just order takers, but salespeople. You need your finances dialed, your critical numbers. You need to know your food, beverage, and labor costs, your daily break even, all those things. And then the extraordinary marketing piece, where you're not spending just tons of money on advertising and marketing that's not proven to drive the ROI. Return on investment is what it's all about. So you don't need to spend a fortune. You can literally get a huge return, lots of new and repeat business with very simple ideas that cost little or no money. Where do you find all this? Everything I'm talking about is in our Restaurant Rockstars Academy. It's literally a roadmap, a template to, those 3 fundamentals that really are the magic dust of restaurants. So check it out at restaurantrockstars.com. I'd like to thank Cisco and 7 Shifts, the all-in-one labor management platform, for sponsoring this episode. And stay tuned. Oh, by the way, don't miss sending us a question. I love when people send us questions. If you go to the show notes for this episode and scroll down the page, you're going to see Ask Us a Question. All you have to do is hit the button. You can record a message from me, and then I'll give you a reply. And chances are I'll read it on the air. So don't miss Ask Us a Question. You can ask us anything, any challenges, any pain points in your restaurant, just any restaurant or hospitality related question. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com.